Due to a visual error, this video is being re-released, but I am putting in a few bonus touch-ups, like covering Morgana, to thank those of you who are watching this video twice. Special thanks to Mr. Glasses for helping me brainstorm the best solution to fix this video. So my 2-year-old Archer finds the song Poor Unfortunate Souls hilarious.
If you want to cross the bridge, my sweet, you've got to pay the toll. Take a breath and go ahead and sign the scroll.
And while singing it 3,000 times in a row in the car, something stuck out to me, as you may remember in the lyrics, and feel free to pause for a singing break if the mood should strike you. Ursula says,
"You'll have your looks, your pretty face, and don't underestimate the importance of body language."
The men up there don't like a lot of blabber. They think a girl who gossips is a bore. Yes, a mind is much preferred for ladies not to say a word, and after all, dear, what is idle prattle for? Okay, not only is that a very sexist and accurate point of view for the time period, but it demonstrates that Ursula has an extreme working knowledge of what human men supposedly like in their women. She goes on to sing,
Come on then, not all that impressed with conversation. True gentlemen avoid it when they can, but they dote and swoon and fawn on a lady who's withdrawn. It's she who holds her tongue who gets her man.
Again, that's more of the same, and Ursula is trying to manipulate Ariel into signing her contract and all, but if Atlanteans are smart enough to realize that humans eat sea creatures, yet clueless enough to believe that a fork is for your hair, there's no way that the Sea Witch should be able to guess that much about human mating rituals correctly. And when you think about it, Ursula's terms of service have a strange condition too.
You've got to get dear old Princey to fall in love with you. That is, he's got to kiss you.
And she specifies that it has to be true love's kiss.
Not just any kiss. The kiss of true love.
Yet look at Ariel. She looks totally enamored by the proposition, like she's studying it. And that delivery style makes it seem as if mer people don't use kissing as a sign of affection. We saw repeatedly in the movie that merfolk do not really get the customs of humans, and they're these largely mysterious beings because the ocean dwellers don't mess around very much with those on dry land. Even King Triton is largely misinformed about humans, which is what creates the initial tension in the film. So for Ursula to know all of these nitty-gritty details of how mankind romantically operates is really bizarre. I know she has her crystal ball, but that only allows her to see through Flotsam and Jetsam's eyes, so she doesn't have to leave her sea monster corpse house. Really, we have zero indication that Ursula can otherwise spy on the surface world without her eels being present. So if Kiss the Girl had happened on a wagon ride instead of a boat, Ariel would have lived happily ever after much sooner. But now that we know Ursula has a lot of knowledge that she shouldn't, we have to ask ourselves how she learned those very intricate, nuanced details. Well, I wasn't sure how to answer that question until I remembered the alternate opening for the movie. Fathoms Below was initially a much longer song, and it set up for the character dynamics, but it ultimately got edited down in the film. Listen to this tidbit though.
There's a whole world of mer people under the sea.
King Triton's their ruler.
He's got 7 fair daughters.
And a witch of a sister named Ursula.
Ursula?
Evil and ugly and hungry for power. King Triton, he banished her off into exile, and there she lives now, just biding her time.
So Triton and Ursula are confirmed siblings, which actually explains a lot of the rivalry mentality we get from Ursula. And when we pair that information with Ursula's entrance in the film, where she reveals,
In my day, we had fantastical feasts when I lived in the palace. And now look at me, wasted away to practically nothing.
wow, it all starts to click together. Let me draw you out my full Ursula theory. She was the sister of King Triton, and as the daughter of the god Poseidon, Ursula had her own unique set of powers, which is why she can use and command her eels the way that she does.
And I fortunately knew a little magic. It's a talent that I always have possessed.
Don't get it twisted, because Ursula also studies magic spells and potions, but that's a separate thing from her natural abilities. Now, before everyone starts scratching their heads and asking why Ursula is an octopus, I don't think she always looked that way. Initially, I bet she looked just like Vanessa. When I was a kid, I always thought Vanessa was a copy of Ariel with brown hair, and the two women do have really similar features, but if you face swap them, it's really easy to pick out that the eyes, mouth, and nose are just a little bit different. Almost like how an aunt and niece would look similar without being an identical match, don't you think? I mean, why else would Ursula choose to look like Vanessa over anyone else in the world? She was already enchanting Prince Eric, so her looks didn't matter, and she could have just stolen Ariel's entire body form, but she didn't, and I believe that's because Vanessa was her original appearance. But back to the timeline, Ursula was denied the privilege of ruling Atlantica, and that greatly upset her, causing her to seek power in any way possible. Because of the power-hungry aspect, I'd guess that she's the older sibling who feels that her brother took her birthright from her. So, furious with her situation in the ocean, Ursula put a spell on herself to hunt down a position of power on land. Probably going after a king or prince, perhaps even Eric's father. Because she knows so much about human dating and the preferences of men, Ursula obviously didn't enchant anyone into loving her, at least not right away. Then, for one reason or another, things went sour, Ursula had to flee back to Atlantica, and mankind watched her transform into a mermaid, or she screwed up and turned herself into an octopus woman, one of the two, which made ships hover around that area because they wanted to hunt the sea witch down. Or maybe they wanted to find a mermaid for themselves. These sailors probably got a few too, as that would put a lot of stress on the mer people and birth Triton's hatred of humans. It even gives him an excuse to banish his sister from society shortly before the events of Ariel's beginning. That is, assuming you count Ariel's beginning as canon, which I typically don't, but it can work here, so I'll go with it. Notice that the mermaids all loved being on the surface until a ship tore through and ended up killing Ariel's mom, Athena. That's the result of a power-hungry Ursula meddling with the human world. That type of dangerous intervention is why she got exiled. And that ship seemed to be after Athena with a vengeance, and Fathoms Below tells us that humans know very accurate details about the Mer Kingdom, somehow making Ursula the perfect culprit to fill in the gaps here. Then somewhere in that chaos, maybe when she turned back into a mer person, or maybe because she was so angry with the mer people, she ended up making herself into an octopus woman and vowed revenge on her evil brother that banished her. Because, you know, everything she did was probably his fault in her mind because he took the throne of Atlantica. Something like that, at least. It's a little fanfiction-y, but I think it's somewhere in that ballpark. And since I'm reposting this video, let me talk about some things I've seen come up in the comments over and over and over. The book Poor Unfortunate Souls is a Disney release, but Disney books are usually not canon with the films. That's not just me ignoring evidence to support my own theory. Disney often allows their franchises to be played around with in terms of books, sequels, shows like Once Upon a Time, but that branching out almost always gets ignored or forgotten long term. And since I've heard that all the Disney villain books have a connected storyline, I really think Poor Unfortunate Souls is going to be part of that forgotten Disney stuff in a few years. I have dyslexia, so I don't read very often, but I'm sure this is still a great book that you would all enjoy reading. Just make sure you take it with a grain of salt when you're looking at the original movie. Now, on to the biggest question that kept pouring into the comments. What about Morgana from The Little Mermaid 2? Really, there's two options here, so you guys can pick whatever feels right. You can look at The Little Mermaid 2's quality, continuity issues, and horrible writing, not to mention the fact that it's a totally different animation studio that handled it, and you can use that to determine that it isn't really a canon sequel, but more like fanfiction that somehow got its own movie. Or we can explain Morgana through the Little Mermaid musical. I got a wonderful comment from Megan, I think that's Marchionda? So sorry if I butchered that, but she explained that the play confirms Ursula is Triton's big sister, and that they had 6 other sisters that Ursula killed. So Ursula Ursula and her sisters were the original Seven Seas, and then Triton's daughters became the new Seven Seas. If we go with this option, then it's easy to hypothesize that Ursula and Triton had different mothers. Ursula's mama was an octopus, and yes, I'm sticking firm with octopus, not squid, because Ursula has 6 tentacles and 2 arms, giving her 8 appendages in total. But after Ursula got herself in trouble on dry land, for whatever reason, she reverted to her mother's species, which could have been something that she's done several times before, but now she just couldn't change back anymore. And even though Ursula thought she killed her sister Morgana, she didn't! Morgana got away! And then later returned to fill the villainous void that Ursula left in Atlantica. Whichever option works for you, let me know in the comments. It might not be reality, but theories are more fun.
If you want to cross a bridge, my sweet, you've got to pay the toll. Take a breath and go ahead and sign the scroll. Flotsam jetsam, now I've got her, boys. The boss is on a roll. And these poor, unfortunate souls. Such a good song.
Well, that's all I have for now, but this video's not quite over yet. I get a lot of comments that say, do a theory on this topic, but I've already done those theories. So please consider going to my main channel page and clicking on the video tab so that way you can see everything I've done. You will probably find a lot of things you like that you never even knew that I posted. I want to let you know that I also have 2 other channels, Say Halo Goodbye Gaming and the Fanily Family Vlogs. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed enough to hit subscribe and share. I can use all the help I can get to let other people know that this channel exists. And if you made it this far, leave me a comment that says something like, hey, I made it to the end, and then let me know what kind of videos you want to see in the future. I can't make any promises, but the more people that request something, the more I can look into it. Okay, well, I love you. I'll see you in the next video.